welcome to Yin and Young, the podcast. Today is a very special episode. We're joined by Nicole McLendon. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, McLendon.
McLendon. Hi, yay!
Yay!
And so Nicole and I, we've met before at a production, development place. You know, it was a good learning experience. And for this particular episode, as you probably saw from the title, which we will have below, it's about Terrace House, boys and girls in the city. And basically, yeah, before we get into it, let me see if I can actually can I play this? Let's see, hold on. It was an F? Okay, yeah. Alright, here. So, intro.
Are you gonna play Aloha the Lights Follow?
Let's see. But I've been stealing time, thinking if I tried, everything would turn out right. Caught up in the climb, love was far behind. Someone's got to stop this madness. But all this seems that it's okay, and all we feel is day to day, we're on replay. All these dreams where life's made are leaving out the people that we love, so slow down. Need to slow down. And then there's like a whole other song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you actually tried? Did you watch the song that Taishi, one of the Aloha State guys, or two of the Aloha State guys, they covered on YouTube?
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, it's called Kosui. It's one of the guys, Taishi. You probably haven't met him yet, but he's a terrible singer. But you
mean
player,
Guilty Samurai? Yeah, I know Guilty
Yeah.
Samurai. Yeah.
Eden Kai actually plays a guitar on that, and he's like obviously awesome, but Taishi is a terrible singer, but he knows it.
Yeah, Taishi.
Anyways, enough about Aloha State.
Yeah, enough about Aloha State.
Back on topic.
So yeah, Dan, you want to lead us into the topic we're talking about today?
Yeah, so we are talking about Terrace House, which is a reality TV show on Netflix. It's based in Japan for the first 2 seasons. One season that's not on Netflix, but one season, the very first season that they have on Netflix is actually the second season officially. But the only one that's available to us as a first season is Boys and Girls in the City. They have 3 boys and 3 girls, or 3 men and 3 women, live in a house together for as long as they want, and with the idea that they might meet someone they want to meet or hook up with, or not hook up with, but actually date. There's a very big distinction, right? They don't just hook up like the shows in America where like Big Brother, where they just have like hookups, random hookups, or like one night stands. It's very formal, and we can talk about that, and that's what we should talk about. It's very formal, and my wife, when she saw it, it's like, is that how this dating is like in Japan?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I haven't dated a Japanese girl from Japan, where you actually have to make your intentions known before you hold hands or even go to get to first base.
What is it? Kesoku, right? Yeah, confession?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nicole, do you speak any Japanese at all or no?
No, nothing.
Okay, yeah. Dan speaks some Japanese. I'm learning Japanese right now. So it was very interesting to like, even to hear kind of like the casual conversation, pick up some fun words. Yeah.
But before we go into that, we should talk to Nicole and introduce Nicole.
Yeah.
And you should give a brief background. I know you guys interned or met somewhere at a production place, but if you want, you can give a brief background of yourself if you like. Or
Nicole. Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. A brief background. I went to Chapman for screenwriting, so I just graduated last year now, so it's about a year, and now I've been working at this entertainment law firm, Rambo Law PC. If you need work done, come to us. But I've been working as an assistant in their packaging and sales department, where we look over client scripts and help send them out to different production companies and distributors. So just kind of getting my foot in the door for the entertainment industry, but hopefully one day we'll actually get paid to write. So.
Oh yeah. Because if I remember correctly, you studied I think at Chapman you study everything, right? Writing, production, directing.
Actually, just screenwriting. I
Oh,
mean, I
you
took
just
like
focus on
basic film
screenwriting.
classes, but yeah, I got ultimately my degree in screenwriting. Yeah,
Oh, cool. And that was your undergrad or your master's or?
undergrad. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. That's awesome. No, I'm glad that you're still working towards your dream. That's amazing. Which is another theme in Boys and Girls in the City. So that's great. No, that's great. I think we should catch up like sometime. It's good to hear some other fellow interns. Yeah, for this one, for this podcast, it'd be interesting to hear. So yeah, as Dan mentioned, this is the first season that's on Netflix. So for many people, this is for Boys and Girls in the City. The reason I reached out to Nicole is because I saw that on Instagram, like we were following some of the same people, and Armand and stuff. I was like, oh hey, you're a fan too? And then it's kind of like once you find out there's another fan of Terrace House, there's like this kind of cultish feeling, like oh, we know something, we know about something that
Yes.
maybe the general population is not privy to, and I'd be curious to hear each of your. So Daniel, I guess you shared already a little bit about how you first found Terrace House. I guess Netflix. Yeah, I mean, if you both want to share, I'll start with my experience. My experience first coming to Terrace House was like I had heard about it. I had seen maybe like some clips or something online, but I tried watching it a few years ago, and I was like, I don't get it. Like I watched like the first episode of Aloha State, I think, because I think Lawrence High was like getting really famous at the time, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. She's Asian American, I'm Asian American, so I checked it out, and I was just like, eh. But I think why? Because I skipped Boys and Girls in the City. Coming straight into Aloha State, I was like, yeah, I think it's kind of boring. I don't really get it. It wasn't until the pandemic around March, April, I was like, fuck, what's there to watch? And then I flicked through. Okay, I had to be honest. It's kind of sorry, down note, but like I had heard about Hana Kimura. So actually, that was May, I think. What was it, May? Yeah, she passed in May. But anyways, I'm trying to remember the series of events. If I watched it before, oh, you know what? Actually, I watched it a little bit later. So not the start of the pandemic, but like towards the May part of the pandemic. I had heard about Kana Kimura. She was a pro wrestler that was on the current season 2019-2020 Tokyo Terrace House, and a friend had posted something about how she had passed, and it was very. I was like, what's this about? And also some other pro wrestlers had posted about it. She was a professional wrestler that was only 22 years old that was on the current season. So I looked into it, and I was just like, what is? Oh, this is the Terrace House. And I talked to some friends about like, what's this all about? So ethically, I wasn't sure if I wanted to watch the series because it had some sort of controversy around it. Ultimately, my friend says like, James, you can decide for yourself, but I do definitely think there is something there to watch. There is something. So I started watching Boys and Girls in the City. I wanted to start from the earliest one that was on Netflix, and like no joke, I got super addicted. Like I was watching it. It was during the because May was like when like people were starting to like finally take it seriously. Like April, they're like, I don't know if I really need to wear a mask, and then May, everyone's like, fucking yeah, everyone's got to wear a mask, and so I was clamped down at home, and yeah, I just watched that series, and it really was. I watched another YouTuber, Flesh Monk, and he mentioned how it was like therapy for him, and I think in a way it was. It's just very soothing for some reason watching these people and their lives. I mean, there were some really stressful parts, but just having it externalized in other people and watching it made me think about my own life in a lot of ways. But yeah, how about you, both of you? Like, how did you guys come to the series? Yeah.
Nicole, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I started watching it a few years back, like my sophomore year of college, because one of my roommates had been like listening to a podcast and they mentioned Terrace House. So she had started watching the first few episodes and she saw Dream Police and she was like, you guys, like all of us in the house, you need to watch this. And then from there you can decide if you want to watch the rest of the show. So we all like watched Dream Police together and we were all thought it was like absolutely insane how he was behaving and everything. So we decided to like go from the beginning and start watching. So for that year, it was like our roommate tradition, I guess, for to like watch like a few episodes every week. And then so yeah, we just ended up doing that. And then even then, once we like parted ways and stopped living together, I mean, it's like you said, pretty addicting. So I just kept watching the other seasons, and yeah, it's kind of how I got into it.
Dream Police, that episode. Okay, yeah. Dan? Yeah. Dan, are you still there? Dan, can you hear us?
My network dropped just for a sec.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was a power out earlier today here in the valley. That's weird. But yeah, how about yourself, Dan?
Someone told me about it a few years ago, and I just never got around to it. But then once the pandemic hit, I was like, I need a different content, and I was looking for something Japanese oriented because I was watching Midnight Diner, which is also on Netflix, and it's kind of cheesy and overacted and everything like that. So I thought I'd give Terrace House a try, but I had to find which one to start with. So I asked a friend, and he said, "Oh, Boys and Girls in the City." So that's what I started with because I didn't know, like, it doesn't tell you Aloha State's like the second season and anything like that. So
yeah, you have to look at the release date. Let me see.
Yeah.
Terrace House Boys and Girls was 2015, September 2015. So it's been exactly, it's been exactly 5 years since it started, and it ended a year later in 2016. Yeah, September 2016. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I know there's a lot to talk about, so maybe we should just get into it. I don't know. So as far as this podcast, there's two ways we can go about it. We can go like, one way I was thinking like maybe events chronologically, and then maybe from there branch off to like the big ideas I had listed, like reality versus fiction, real time culture. How do you guys feel? Yeah.
Nicole?
That works for me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
so
we should at least set up the premise of the show. I know I talked about it briefly about three men and three women, but we didn't talk about the commentators. They're also six commentators, right? Three men and three women. Yeah. 3 men and 3 women.
Right.
No, actually it's more than that. It's like 4 women.
No, it's 3 women, 3 men. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have people who talk about it right after the opening scene. Talked about the previous events, and they dissect. They're almost like a color commentary for events that happen in the house that they live in.
Right.
So there's that, and they have it. They talk at the very beginning, they talk at the very end, and they always emphasize that it's an unscripted show, which we should get into. I don't think it's completely unscripted.
Can you do it in Japanese? Like they repeat it every time. So I was like, man, if I can memorize this in Japanese, that'd be good. It's like steki na kuruma, steki no ie.
I have to go see it again, just to refresh my mind.
Yeah, steki means nice, right? But so basically, she says at the start of every episode, konbanwa, which means good night, good evening. Terrace House is a show about 6 strangers, 3 men, 3 women that live in a nice. And all that we provide is a nice house, a nice car, and there is no script at all.
Yeah.
Am I missing something? Yeah.
No, I think that's it. And then the thing is I don't remember too well because in Netflix with the Apple TV, you can actually skip the intro.
Skip the intro, yeah.
And it just like cuts into like, it's an unscripted show. And I was like, okay, anyways, I don't care about whatever the intro is. But also, whenever a man leaves or whenever a woman leaves, they always replace it with another woman or another man, to make sure that there's always a 3-on-3 balance.
Yeah.
And then everyone who lives there, they have their own lives. If they're a student, they still continue to go to school. If they're working, doing whatever they're working on, they continue doing that. I don't know how some of the people who stopped working continue to live there and like afford to live there. I don't know if they get paid. Some sort of
it's free rent, obviously, I guess, yeah.
Right, but they're young. Most of them are young people, or they're very few of them are established in their career.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they get along, and they have part-time jobs. Someone pick up part-time jobs, but it's not like a load of money that they're making.
Right. Yeah. I was curious about like if they get paid too or not. it Terrace House is very interesting because the way the production is kind of like a black box. I don't know if you know anything about how the production is, but like yeah, Nicole and I know something about film production, and I was trying to look up how is their production. Whereas like Big Brother, they have the camera on all the time or something like that, or they have like the CCTV or whatever. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But for this one, the camera quality is really good. The sound's really good. So I'm assuming they're using lavalier mics, or at least because to use a boom mic, you'd actually it would be really hard to get some of those angles with a boom mic in the shot, you know. So I'm assuming they're using lavalier, which are these portable mics, and then the camera, there's camera movement, so there has to be a camera operator there. Anyways, yeah, so that's the premise of the show. Sorry, Nicole, did we miss anything or?
No, I think you covered it all. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 6 commentators that are more established in their fields. The first 6 commentators in the first part. There's 2 parts of Boys and Girls in the City. Total of 46 episodes. The first half of the series is Yu. She's there from the beginning, since season 1 of Terrace House. She's an older lady. She's a famous actress and TV personality in Japan. There's what is it? Babazono. She's the I guess what's the word? She's a little bit more thicker woman. She's like more roundy. And then she's a comedian. Yeah, there's Tokui. He's maybe a middle-aged man, thinner, and then there's Yama-chan, he's like the guy with glasses, and he's everyone's all funny in their own right, but he seems to have distinguished himself as the hater. Like he's always the hater of panelists. And then they have a young guy. The first part was part 1 was Ayumi, who's like 14. I thought that was kind of a bad choice. I mean, he's too young to really share anything. Like when they asked him, "Hey, what have you learned since you're leaving?" He's like, "Costco." And then after that, it was taken over for the majority of the season by Kentaro, who is an upcoming actor as well. Yumi was an actor, and Kentaro he's 18, so he has maybe a little bit more life experience. Yeah. So cool. Let's get into it as far as the events. So Nicole touched on it. Dream Police, yay, Yuki. So let's start it off. It first opens with 6 strangers coming into the house. We have Mako-Chan. He's a baseball player. So basically, for everyone who's listening to this podcast, we're assuming that you've watched it. And we're going to talk as if you've already seen the series. However, we're going to do some refreshers. But that way, just heads up, spoilers galore. We're going to spoil every single thing about this series. I'm going to try to avoid spoiling stuff from Aloha State, which I just started watching, and also from the season 1, which most people haven't watched, of Terrace House. But I'm going to try to keep it. But I may make some references, but in vague terms. So anyways, it starts with Mako-chan. He's a baseball player. There is Mizuki. She's a businesswoman, and she's 23. Mako is like 21. Minori, she is 21. She's a model. And then there's Uchi. He's a hairstylist. Uchi-san. He's 23. And then this is all on like Wikipedia. And then who else is there? There is Yuriko Hayata. She's a medical student. And then last person is Yuki Adachi, aka the Dream Police. So this episode, it's his birthday. They're sharing like their dreams, and then Mizuki, the office woman / barista, is talking about her dreams. And Nicole, it seems like you had a very visceral reaction to this episode. So basically, what happens is that Yuki's like asking, "Really, that's your dream? You want to open your own coffee shop?" I'm not really clear, and she starts crying. And then what's crazy is that Yuriko, the medical student, starts crying too. It's like, I don't know, but she's trying to explain it. You guys are not getting it, you know? So, Nicole, what was your first reaction?
I think definitely the first reaction was like, first of all, why is he doing this? Like, why does he like attacking her? I guess. 'Cause I guess like you get more used to it as you watch like kind of more like Japanese culture and how they could do things. But like there's like a lot of crying that actually happens, I feel like, throughout the series that I was like not used to seeing. But I think just like seeing like this guy who I kind of off the bat did not like or vibe with, I guess. And throughout the series did not like or vibe with in any way. But just like seeing him go after like what I thought was like a fairly clear like a dream. Like she wanted to like she was talking about like a theme park and like opening a coffee shop, and it wasn't super like a concrete this is my 5-step plan to getting there.
Yeah.
Seemed fairly like clear. Like she knew generally what she wanted, but she's like still young and has time to like figure things out. But he seemed to want like a whole PowerPoint presentation of how she was going to achieve these dreams and the things. And he's like a tap dancer, so I didn't know like how he had the authority to be coming from that place to attack her for her dreams.
I mean, I guess he's a little bit older. He's 20. He's the oldest in that first group, 27. But still, who cares, right? Yeah.
That one, I don't think when people have those dreams, right? They know what they want to be. They want to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, an actor, a singer, whatever. I thought that was pretty unfair because not everyone has that luxury of like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. So you're in your 20s, you try things out. At least for me, I was like, I just want to make money. Then I didn't have like a dream like, oh, I wanted this pie in the sky thing. But everybody else actually had something, and I think for him, he had his thing, and he actually was ranked or whatever. He got championships, or he's well known as a tap dancer, and he's living his dream. But I mean, he's also like 5 years older than Mizuki at that time, so it's pretty unfair, I thought.
Yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments on Reddit. Like, Mizuki is probably the most well-loved female member on the show. Yeah. She's super sweet. Like, are you a fan of Mizuki as well, or?
Yeah, she's one of the ones I follow on Instagram.
Yeah.
So.
I think she's done well for herself. Like, she's super positive, and it's just like with love. It's just So she. With Mako-Chan, it didn't go through, and then with Armand, who comes later, it didn't work out either. But I think, with love, it's like you can't really predict it. It's like chemistry, if you have the chemistry or not. And I think Armand later, he says like he was trying to choose between. At the time, he's choosing between her and Arisa, who's the hat maker who comes in later. But he just went for the one he felt more strongly about. My thing about this whole dream police, I thought it was like super arrogant of him. Like, what the fuck? Like, who are you, right? Who are you, this tap dancing guy, trying to tell me what And I thought it was like, I've had like, it'd be cool to have like a coffee shop or like a bookstore, but why does it have to be like a freaking like you said, PowerPoint or like a flow chart or some shit? Like, who cares, right? It seemed very imposing. And I think you bring up a good point, Nicole, is that so here's my stereotype coming into the show about Japanese people. I felt that just from the very limited experience and the few trips I did, like some travel trips, is that they're very polite and they're not really that straightforward sometimes. They'll maybe, if they disagree with you on something, they'll say like, oh, well, maybe you can think about this way. So these are my own preconceived notions. And the thing is that this is a reality show. So we're only seeing a little bit of the reality, right? Like how real is it? We can get into that. And it's also like a very, kind of a high stress situation. They know the cameras are going. They know that what they're saying is going to be, put on screen. So it may change the human dynamic. But one thing I did know from the series is I realized, wow, actually Japanese people, like anyone else, could be extremely direct and could be also very extremely imposing in some ways. And now that I think about it, I realize, we think about indirectness or, as like kind of more of an Asian thing per se. But not necessarily. I remember, like, my mom could be super direct with me and tell me how I'm supposed to be living my life. and I realized, oh, uh, like any culture, there's going to be people like that in any culture, I think. And but what I thought was very particular in eye opening for me in Terrace House was like seeing this kind of personality repeat. This, I guess it's a mix between I'm caring about you, but I think you should also live your life in this way, you know. And you see this again, even with great guys like Hansan, Hansan Yuta Handa, who comes in way later, Mr. Perfect, aka Mr. Perfect. He even tries to give some advice to Armand, which he kind of retracts later on in the series. But I thought like, oh wow, even he's trying to give Armand like life advice or something. So I don't know, maybe part of it's like they're trying to think of things to talk about. But Dan, is that a part of Japanese culture? I know your mom grew up in Japan. You have some experience with Japanese culture, but yeah.
Well, I don't know, how they are about dreams and stuff like that, but I know that whatever you do, you have to be the best at it. Even if you're just a janitor, you have to be the best janitor possible. So that's the mindset that they have. All Japanese people have that mindset, or a lot of Japanese people have that mindset. So, but it just goes back culturally. They want to be the best at whatever they're doing, and I don't think they can understand, or to meet someone who just is half-assing it at all is kind of mind-boggling to them.
Yeah.
If you look at all the anime that you watch, or like Naruto, it's not necessarily the most gifted person, but it's the person who's working at their craft and trying to be the best that they can be, regardless of whether you're talented or not.
I think with
Like Naruto is like that, and One Piece is all about heart. You're going to be the best. You don't necessarily have to be the most gifted, naturally gifted, but you have to work at it no matter what. You can't give up.
But one thing about these, I think we've talked about this before, but with all these animes though, they all have like some special talent though. They work really hard, but it's like when talent and hard work come together, that's when you have something exceptional. Like
Right.
Naruto, he has the nine tails in his body, Nicole, I don't know, have you watch anime at all or not really?
No. No, I think.
Yeah. Or like Goku, he's a Super Saiyan. He's basically like Superman. He comes from a different planet, but he works super hard. But he's not human, So.
But there's Rock Lee from Naruto, who's just all hard work, and that was his talent, right? Just hard work.
Yeah. So that's why that character is very interesting, I think. Yeah. So, moving on. Speaking of like people half-assing it, Mako-Chan. He was number one on every girl's list when he first came on. I mean, Nicole, what'd you think of him?
Yeah, when when all my roommates and I were like first introduced, we thought he seemed like a great guy, and he seemed very nice compared especially to like Mr. Dream Police. But yeah, things really went downhill for all perceptions of him with lazing around and doing nothing. So
Yeah, and also him sharing Uchi's feelings to like Yuriko, saying, "Oh, I heard that he felt really tense when he was talking to you." I mean, like, as far as bro code or whatever, that's bad. Bad bro, man. Like, what is he doing, right? I seem to be maybe a little bit more forgiving. I'm like, maybe he's trying to comfort her, but like, I don't know. Like, okay. So like Yama-chan, one of the panelists, he's either Mako-chan is either an idiot or he's super manipulative, and I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. Yeah, because I'm still not sure. I'm leaning towards maybe dumb, but like he can't be that.
Nicole?
Like I think he's maybe a little manipulative. Yeah.
Nicole, did you think he was dumb, or?
I was leaning more towards like just kind of being like a young, dumb baseball playing idiot when I first like was watching it. 'Cause like I don't know, I feel like from my I guess from like initially seeing things, like he never seemed like, although I also want to like believe the best in people, so maybe that's also why I'm not seeing as much of the manipulation part of it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like part of it's just him being like a young, dumb guy, because he was like 2021. Like, I don't know, you still like growing up and like getting used to the world and knowing how to communicate with people. So that's kind of what I've chalked it up to. But I haven't rewatched it, so maybe my opinion would change. But
yeah, I'm still on the fence on it because they didn't show you what he said, right? They played like a message or something like that, or it was like through a third party. It wasn't like a direct thing that when he was doing that manipulation, if it was manipulation at all.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say. I don't know if it's a producer done thing, because we should really talk about whether it's really unscripted or not. Because there's no way.
Yeah, I mean, watching the show, I'm like, oh, Nicole, I don't know if you had the same feel. Like, I want to believe. I want to, it's like, I want to believe. It helps with the enjoyment, right? But then, because I did hear a little bit about Hana Kimura and her situation, which it was said by her mom, Hana Kimura's mom, Hana Kimura from the 2019 to 2020 cast, that the producers had pushed her to act more violent on set or on, at the house on front of the camera. Now, this is 5 years, after this series. So I wonder how much the production changed and how pushy the producers had become. I know from watching the first season, which has it's 2 years. It does progressively, because in the beginning there's no panelists, so you're just watching people's lives with no commentary. So it's very interesting. There's only in the beginning Yu-san who talks about a little bit what happened last week, but then they add the panelists in season 3 of the first Terrace House, and then it does seem with the panelists it does add a fun energy, but also I feel like the drama gets a little bit more. So I wonder if since then the producers have more hands, yeah.
I guess technically it's unscripted, right? The producers don't hand the script over to the participants, but they definitely direct the narrative, because Minori's sister shows up way too often and almost like, hey, something's not happening. We're just going to send this girl in. I don't see any of the other relatives show up quite as often as she does, right? Later on, you'll see the younger girl, I forget her name, but her mom comes up, once or twice, but Minori's sister is there almost like whenever something needs to happen, they send her in, or they send in Senna. Senna's like,
She always has to make an appearance.
Yeah. Senna makes an appearance. She's in it from the original first season, and Senna plays a similar role. And I'm like, that seems kind of scripted, throwing in the sister a little bit as like the catalyst person, the person that
right.
Yeah.
Every single time, right? So whether it's like getting the relationship going, what's the hold up, and then she brokers like a truce or reconciles everything between like the meat incident that we should talk about, et cetera, et cetera.
Meat incident.
The sister is always sent in, right? And even Uchi wanted to talk to the sister, or was willing to talk to the sister over everybody else.
Yeah, which is strange.
She just happens to show up when something is bad is happening or nothing is happening.
Yeah, Nicole, like how real do you think it is? Or do you even, like, when you first watch it, does that become a prominent question in your mind, or you just watch it for fun and don't think too hard about that part? Yeah.
I mean, I try to just watch it for fun, and especially going into it, I was like, yeah, this is unscripted and all that stuff. But I mean, like, it's also because it's all happening real time. They're not in a bubble. They can also see episodes of themselves coming out and watch that, and see people commenting on that, and then they'll adjust their behavior depending on how audiences are reacting. So they're definitely, I mean, everyone's definitely putting forward a certain persona and trying to get as much reaction or followers or whatever as they are, and then obviously the producers are adding in subbing in certain people who they think will cause the most drama, whether it's to add a wrench into a relationship or try to add some girl drama or whatever it is. But I feel I'm hopeful that it's mostly unscripted, but there's definitely, I mean, whenever you're in any situation where whenever you have a camera on you, you're going to act differently than you are in any other
Yeah.
situation. So
For sure, yeah.
yeah, in any way to like either get attention or to like wash out the worst parts of you, like you're gonna act different. So it's never gonna be truly like real life, but
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that it's somewhat somewhat akin to real life. But
Yeah, I guess the thing is that they know their name. They're using their real name, so like
yeah.
it's gonna follow them into real life. So I guess they try to portray themselves as best as they can, and this plays a big issue later on. System error when Rico Pin and Hayato go
Oh my
not
gosh.
go out. Yeah. Yeah, I think as far as filming wise, so maybe Nicole and I can talk about this. If they have a wide shot, right? So for a wide shot is like from far away, you can see like the most of the people in the screen. If you have that and they're shooting that, and then they move into a close up or a medium shot, I think, for instance, like if someone's has a message on their phone, and they have like the establishing wide shot, and then they go to a message or something, you have to do another take. You have to like, hey, can I film you on your phone? You have to stop the action and say, okay, now that you finished talking, I'm gonna film, like pretend like you're looking at your phone. I think we all kind of can guess that's already kind of disrupting reality already. And also there's some other things as well, like why are they all sitting at the table? You know, like oh, I guess everyone at 8 a.m. just likes to come to the table and just sit down. So my understanding from a cast member from Aloha State, who shall not be named, I guess, I don't know, because she might have like the NDA issue, but on like some sort of Reddit leak I read is that basically there's set times or set days that the film crew comes, and they have to, they let the cast members know in advance, and if they want to be there, and I mean most of them probably want to be on the show and visible, for their, if they're actors, models, or whatnot, and I'm sure there's also some sort of fixer who's like basically communicating with all of them to figure out their schedules, so I mean so that part, it's not scripted, but it seems like a lot of logistics have to be made in order to film this show, and with that there has to be set times, crew members, and stuff like that, which is going to affect the action.
Yeah, like there's definitely a lot of stuff that like happens off screen that isn't recorded that's like then talked about at the table and rehashed.
Right.
So like, and like people can like choose to be like, I'm gonna go out and see this person, but like the camera crew can't follow me. Like there's also different ways of being able to control in that way what the camera sees. So
yeah, and I know that another thing that was said about in that leak was like, oh, the producers are gonna have you sit, and then they're gonna ask you, hey, why don't you talk about your relationship with this person, like to start the conversation, and then it's not scripted, then they'll just let them talk and film that,
And then everybody else leaves. There, like the two people who have to have a conversation sit there, and then everybody else just like takes a cue and just like takes off. I don't have to get like an off-screen cue from a producer and it's like, hey, you guys got to go. Or
Maybe.
what?
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe they have someone like an assistant director going like, yeah.
Like sometimes some cast members are obviously not getting the hint, and another cast member has to come up and be like, no, we have to leave now.
Yeah. So a good example of that is the Omu rice incident, the coward rice, which is this is just before the meat incident. There was a coward rice incident where like Uchi was not really, I guess, manning up or whatever, not kissing Minori, who he's already expressed his feelings for, and she wrote the word coward on rice, which I thought was really creative. Ikuji nashi on the rice using hiragana, and then he comes into the room, and then the girls are like, what the hell? And then they bounce. They like, I'm gonna leave, yeah. And I thought that was super forced. He could have been so much more smoother with that. I mean, like, I thought that was like, dude, do you really have to like come in, barge in, and say, hey, I want you to stand here, close your eyes? That's like, I don't know. What do you guys think of that? That was
It's just awkward.
super awkward, yeah.
Nicole?
I don't know. It was one of the incidents that me and my roommates loved and we'll still talk about to this
Oh,
day. We thought it
okay.
was so great. So
It's as a drama, it's pretty funny. Yeah.
Wait, does that mean as you and your roommates talked about it, it's like, oh, I wish a guy would just do that. Just be very straightforward and very direct and make their intentions known and then go.
I don't know if it was so much of that as just like we liked seeing her like finally like kind of stand up for herself and finally like kind of say something because she'd been kind of like passive otherwise. Right. So I think it was more of just kind of that and just like the inherent drama to it that we as Americans latch onto. But
yeah.
So out of the first three guys and three girls, which ones did you guys thought were like cool, and which ones did you guys like thought, oh, they need to go?
Okay, let's do a ranking. Yay! So I rank. So out of there's three ranks. One being top, two being middle, three being bottom. Makoto, Yuki, and Uchihara. How would you rank them? Nicole, you can start.
Yuki bottom for I think obvious reasons, but
yeah. Dream Police, yeah.
Dream Police, yeah. Uchi also probably bottom. I don't know. From the start, they were like the commentators would talk a lot about how like handsome or cute or how they were like really into him. I never got the appeal.
Interesting. Yeah, me either. His high voice too. Yeah.
Also, when he like asked all of the girls out and like
Uchi week.
That was weird. And like when he told Minori that she was like a sister to him, like he said that at some point, and then later was like, I have feelings for you. That was weird too. So
yeah,
he's weird. And then, oh gosh,
Makoto, he's a strange one.
I guess somewhere between like middle, I guess, because he was good in the first half, and then in the second half he took a
he's not very active on Instagram. I follow him too, and I heard there's a rumor that he went into like a seedier, like he went to like some other industry. But anyways, yeah. So Dan, sorry, go ahead.
So it sounds like the first three guys were just kind of middling, right? Like there's nothing really appealing about all three in the end. At the end of their time at Terrace House, you're like, yeah, it's about time they go.
Yeah, it wasn't sad to see any of them go.
I was kind of sad. So for the girls, we can talk about the girls too. There's Mizuki, Yuriko, and Minori. I would say, if we're thinking about like just positive people, nice people, I think Mizuki and Yuriko are pretty at the top. The way that Yuriko kind of like got to go to Blue Note and kind of led Tap or Yuki on. I don't know. It seemed kind of messed up. A little messed up. But at the same time, I think she seemed very pure, very honest about like she wanted to go to Blue Note, but she never committed and said, "Hey, I really like you, Tap."
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole thing. Mizuki super positive. I like how she confronted Makoto like with a towel, like boom. Yo, why are you talking about Yuriko telling her that she's making Uchi like feeling nervous or feeling tense? And then Minori, I'm like, she's okay.
She's like background noise almost.
I mean, there's a famous quote like, I could do my whole life doing nothing. I could live my rest of my life doing and like she's just very chill. I'm kind of neutral about her. Yeah.
But what's funny with the Dream Place is like, why wasn't she like talked about? Because she was kind of like modeling, kind of doing this.
Well,
right?
Uchi. So again, this goes back to that theme of like Japanese people. Maybe I don't know if it's Japanese people or the show being very goal oriented. So Uchi was giving her flack like, "Hey, how come you're not really working towards being a model?" And she's like, "Well, you probably don't see the work I'm doing." So let's fast forward to the meat incident, I guess. Yeah. So okay.
Who is in the house at that time? Because by that time Mako-Chan is gone.
So Mako-Chan Mako-Chan's the first to leave, yeah, and then Armand comes in, And then after that,
Yuriko is gone.
Yuriko leaves because she broke up. Her boyfriend broke up with her, and she leaves to focus on her studies.
And then Mizuki leaves soon after, I think.
Mizuki and Yuki, because like Armand's not returning her feelings to Mizuki.
Yeah.
Because so basically they're replaced by 18-year-old Haruki. He's half Italian, half Japanese. And then there is Risa, who replaces Yuriko. She's the hat maker. And Armand replaces Mako-Chan. He's the first new member, I guess. Yeah.
And Armand stays the longest.
Armand stays 9 months or 10 months. Yeah. He's kind of like you'll see in the first season. He's kind of like one of the other characters there. Like he stays like pretty much almost the whole time. Yeah. So the meat incident. Let me set this up. I guess is so. The first we see this really A5 grade meat. That's in the fridge. Natsumi or Nachan. She's like, oh wow, this looks like really expensive meat. And Minori's like, oh yeah. Uchi brought it. And she's like, oh cool. And she not think anything of it. And then puts it back in the fridge. Armand Haruki. Armand is he's aspiring firefighter, 24. He's
half Japanese,
half Iranian. He's also a kickboxer. Tough looking. Haruki is like a Haruki. Haruki. What's his name? Oh, Hikaru. Yeah, Hikaru. Yeah. Is 18 years old. He's a model, also part-time construction worker. I got some issues with that guy, but anyways. So the three of them, Minori, Armand, and Hikaru, there's no food. So they're like, hey, what about this steak here? And Minori's like, oh yeah, let's cook it. It's Uchi's, but yeah, it's fine. And Natsumi's like, huh. She's like watching. She's like, oh, okay, but she doesn't say anything like, she doesn't eat any of the meat, which I thought was very interesting. But like, yeah, she doesn't have any of the meat. And then Uchi comes back and it's like, oh shoot, the meat's gone. And then Minori's like, yeah, is something wrong, Uchi? He's like, well, I'm really upset that you guys ate the meat. But like, you don't see how upset he is until like maybe the next episode. But he's like super upset. And the commentators are like, whoa. He's like, because basically she asks and he's like, fine, whatever. And he walks away. Like, she's like, oh, I ate the meat. The three of us ate the meat. He's like, now I'm pretty upset about that. And she's like, I'm sorry. He's like, fine, whatever. He bounces. And the commentator's like, whoa, he's overreacting. Now, for me, when I saw that, I was like, oh no, he's reacting exactly how he should react. Because like, supposedly, I don't know, Dan, if because I know you work in food before, but like, that's like a really high grade. That's like $100. That's over like $100 worth of meat, I think. I'm trying to look it up.
I mean, I've had Kobe beef before.
Yeah.
He had Wagyu. And then, like, I went to Kobe and actually had Kobe beef, and a cheap one was like $120 for like a small little fillet. I mean, it was delicious, but I was like, holy smokes, $120. And they had like higher quality ones. And this one was like, the Wagyu one was supposed to be really, really good because the guy who gave it to him was a customer who specializes in meat, right? So I'm sure it was like $150 or at least $100 per steak that they just ate per person.
So I'm personally pissed for Uchi, but we find out later in the series, like, actually that was just the tip of the iceberg. Him and Minori had not been communicating, and you get this beautiful scene of him fucking crying, his face in the pillow, and like he's covering his face, and he's like, and I think it's beautiful. It's like one of the few times I actually like Uchi. I thought he was kind of a player, but he's actually showing vulnerability, and like he's holding Minori's hand, and they kind of make up, and their relationship is much more lovey-dovey after that, and that's when they leave the house right after they make up. And I think in some ways it was such a, first of all, I'm super freaking angry they ate that without texting him or calling him. So I think the commentators are wrong. and maybe it's the American in me because I looked at some other Americans' comments on it, and everyone was agreeing, like, dude, why did they eat that beef without saying anything? You know, because I think in America we don't have that. We're not that. I mean, we all have some Asian descent, I know, but like, we still understand the idea of like boundaries in the fridge and stuff like that, like property. Like, whereas I think in Asian culture, like, oh, it's in the fridge, like, let's all eat. Like, maybe that's more of that. Maybe that's what I'm missing, but still, like, yeah, that's messed up. They didn't ask him, and then two, I think it was the tip of the iceberg, and that for him and Minori to like work out their relationship issues, because basically it was a show of not respecting him, and I think respect is a big thing in relationships. I know from my past relationships, if I ever felt disrespected and I held it in, it would blow up into something like probably not as bad as Uchi, but like we get into like a big argument or something. So in this case, it blew up into like a big cry and a makeup. So I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Those are my thoughts on the meat incident. Yeah.
I mean, Nicole, I'm just looking up the cast members. I don't remember not to me what she looks like.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, the meat incident, like his first reaction, like I totally understood. Like I would get upset if someone ate something I bought that was like worth like $5. I would get upset if someone like went in and ate it without asking me. So I totally understood that. I also, at the time of watching, I didn't realize how expensive it was, so I didn't get the crying thing. My roommates and I were mocking him for that, but
you guys are evil.
I didn't get the crying thing, but then also, in general, I don't get crying that much, but so I think so I definitely like I guess was a little hard on him for that like crying moment because I didn't realize exactly how much that was, but I definitely did appreciate how it like kind of strengthened his and Minori's relationship, because before that I like didn't see the chemistry at all, or like for them to be together, it felt kind of fake and like put together, like they felt compelled to do that. So after that, I appreciated seeing like more of an actual kind of like authentic connection. But other than that, yeah, no, I was coming down on Uchi. But
but spoiler, they're not together anymore. Yeah, Minori married someone else. Uchi, I think, is still single, maybe. But anyways, yeah, Dan.
I am of the opinion that it was kind of messed up that they ate it. I mean, in Japan, you actually know how much that beef is cost, how much it costs. Beef is not as common in Japan. Pork is more common because, I mean, if you think about it, it's not Texas. There's not a ton of land. Most of the beef comes from Australia. So any beef that's actually Japanese is a lot more expensive. And it was just kind of messed up, I thought. I thought the crying was a little bit overboard. I think he should have just like railed him. I mean, he did yell at him in a way, but it's just kind of inconsiderate of Minori. Minori was like, at that time, she wasn't doing jack shit. She was just hanging around the house, not doing anything.
Well, Dan, you didn't see. She was cleaning. She told him. She's like, "Hey, Uchi, you don't see it, but like I'm cleaning the Japanese room. I make dinner for you." So those are the things that the camera crew didn't really film, but she's doing some stuff to make the relationship work, I think. But yeah, as far as her career, I don't think she was doing too much, but yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah. Okay. Just for context, if I remember, Nicole, both of your parents are American?
Yeah.
Okay, and your mom is Asian American?
Yeah, she's Chinese. Her parents were from China, so they moved.
Like from Toisan area, or?
Yeah, from Toisan.
The
early, yeah. A lot. I think a lot
all
of
the gangsters.
The
Toisan people are the gangsters.
Is that true, Nicole? I mean, I didn't say that.
I've heard of, although my mom does like to say she grew up in the ghetto. So I mean.
Well, it's because they were around the longest. So a lot of the triads came over, and then I think the Toisan people were the first ones that immigrated, and a lot of them are the ones who started. I only say this because one of my college buddies, he's Toisan. He was like very proud of the fact that they were all gangsters. It's not a bad thing, I guess. I mean, you're protecting your own.
Right, and it's interesting. In Japan, I guess all gangsters are supposed to wear. They all have tattoos, But then I think recently there's a law saying like, oh, actually tattoos are, because I think it's on paper it's illegal to have tattoos. I think in Japan,
Really?
yeah,
Really?
or like no, not illegal, but like oh, I remember you have to have a medical license to do tattoo art. Like you actually
Okay.
you have to have a medical
But
license. Yeah,
but as the person who wears it or has it, I mean, there's like no. The
There-
only restrictions you do have is you can't go to hot springs.
that's messed up
Oh.
though. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it associates to be like you're in the yakuza.
Right, and I thought the commentators were very interesting by calling Armand out, but like, oh, he's got tattoos. I was like, who
Yeah, I was
cares?
like, that's super normal. Like,
Who cares? Yeah,
That's super
yeah.
normal in America, right? But
Yeah.
in Japan, all the yakuza always had tattoos, and all the people who were delinquents had tattoos. So it's like a holdover from those days.
Yeah, yeah. So Uchi and Minori left without some. There was some conflict between her and Minori and Natsumi, Nachan. They're basically they're like, huh, hey, eh, what? Like there was their miscommunication there. I'll get back to Nachan because it comes again with Misaki. Misaki is what is Misaki? Misaki, she's 23 at this when she comes to the show. Misaki Tamori, she's also an entertainer. And then Yuto Handa, Mr. Perfect, comes in as well. So I know we're already coming close to an hour now, but I want to talk about Han-chan, Mr. Perfect. Question
Yes.
the question I put on this list I have here is he perfect? Nicole.
I mean, he definitely seemed like in that bunch to be the most like mature and wise and like nice person there. Although I wasn't a fan of the smoking, but that's also my
Yeah,
own
big chain
American
smoker.
predilections. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's not a
yeah.
perfect thing. But yeah, no, the commentators were like obsessed with him, which I didn't
Yeah.
quite understand the obsession. But I admired him as like a friend, but I also didn't completely understand why he was there.
Yeah, he has a
But
girlfriend. Yeah.
yeah, so I didn't really get that. But he was like a nice addition, but like wasn't that sad to see him go or anything like that. So
Dan?
I didn't understand his appeal either, but when my wife saw him, I was like, oh, she's like, that's the best looking guy on the show. I was like, really? I thought
I didn't get
Hikaru-
that.
I thought Hikaru was actually pretty good looking. But then if you see another picture of him where he changes his hairstyle, he's actually a pretty good looking guy. He slouches, but he's a good looking guy. But I mean, he was able to do a lot of things, and he was kind of like he was a better version of Yuki, Mr. Dream Police, because he was establishing his career, his field, and he was still trying to pursue to be better, but he wasn't like forcing his opinions on you. And people
Good
would go to him
point.
for like advice and stuff, and he was like more willing to give it. But there was like some advice that he gave to Natsumi that I thought was kind of weird. It just didn't sync well. It was like he was like just trying to make sure that everything was well intentioned, but then later on it seemed like he flipped on that. I don't remember the full incident.
Yeah. So there's two things. One thing is, okay, when Minori, before she left, she had some issues with Natsumi, who's a model as well. And that basically, so Natsumi was like, oh, you have a really weird relationship with Uchi to Minori. And Minori was like, yo, girl, like, I don't like that. You're being super judgmental. Whereas even the commentators were like, well, she's just trying to be friendly in a very maybe straightforward way. But then we see later on with Misaki, this happens again. So it may be in this. So basically, Han-san, Yuto Handa, he says to Natsumi, hey, like when you speak to people, you should actually think about how they feel. You shouldn't just blurt out whatever's on your mind and like consider other people. And I think this is a big thing, not just in Japanese culture, but I think in Asian culture as well, especially with like the face masks. Like we're always considering how we might affect others. So the whole face mask thing is like in Asian culture, wearing a face mask within the past 50 years has been fairly normal whenever you're feeling sick, because you don't want to spread that disease as a public health issue. So. And I think this whole Han-san, he kind of, is he Mr. Perfect? I mean, I think he's he gives some of the most sound advice, but what I found very interesting is when he told Armand, hey, you know what? Whatever you do, Armand, you should be working towards your goal as being a firefighter. And then he flip-flops, because then towards the end, after spending months with Armand hanging out, at the end, before he leaves, he says, Armand, actually, you just stay the way you are, and that's just be happy. Because I think Armand says something about how all he really wants in life is just to, come home from work, meet his wife and kids, and go surfing in the morning. Dan, am I saying that correct?
Yeah. Nicole, I mean, what did you find Armand appealing, Nicole, when you first saw him?
Initially, yeah. All my roommates and I were like into him and liked him. Thought he stuck around for a really long time. And another cultural thing that he was doing that was not in syncopation with like Japanese culture, like kind of just being very ambivalent about life, which was fine, but don't think he needed to do that on Terrace House. Although he managed to clutch a girlfriend in the very last bit. So
in the last bit, yeah.
That felt really rushed, but
a little bit, but I think they stayed the longest out of all the ones that formed on this.
For a while, and they did like long distance too, so that was like pretty impressive. How long? Pretty impressive. But I definitely initially liked him, and I'm always there for my Hapa people. So like,
I thought Hikaru looked better. I thought Hikaru was a better looking guy.
Dude, Hikaru looked better, but dude, his personality's pretty bad, man. Like the way he treated Misaki, I think. Okay, here's what I think. I think Hikaru, I want to keep the positive of people in the front of my mind. And I think Hikaru, he's just 18. He doesn't know how to be mature about expressing, his boundaries and his distaste. Like when they're making fun of him about his driving, he comes off super angry. Like, no, my driving's great. And like everyone's telling him he sounds angry, and he's like, I'm not angry.
But I mean, that might just be who he is, right? Everyone has like a resting bitch face, and that might be him. That might be the way he speaks. I don't know.
I'm not gonna give him the pass because like the way he talked to Misaki is like super rude.
It is, but you don't know what happened in between because everything in the compressed timeline, right? I thought what was interesting was when he said, like, you know what, I'm done. He didn't even stay that long. And when he says, I'm done, I'm leaving, Armand surprised me and was like, I can't believe you're leaving.
Yeah.
We were going to do so many things together. We were going to, like, hang out and do blah, blah, blah. I was like, the nicest guy on Terrace House, the guy who stayed the longest and everything like that, but the nicest guy, he looked at Hikaru as like a true brother. He was like really sad, and I was like, something else happened, right? Things that we don't get to see. So Hikaru might have mistreated Misaki terribly on camera, but we don't know what led up to that, right? He might have realized that Misaki didn't really have goals, or or it doesn't like jive with what he's
part. Yeah.
Because it could have been. We don't know. Right? There's something, the way it was presented on camera, definitely he didn't come off really well, but there's something else that I think we're missing because I was really surprised. I mean, Nicole, were you surprised? I mean, you're nodding your head. You're like, yeah. I was like, oh, this guy's like, he was my brother.
Yeah, I was like pretty surprised. I was like, we didn't see like really anything that much of their relationship, like Armand and Hikaru. So like, seeing that whole like tearful goodbye, I was like, there's this whole other like chapter we weren't seeing because like I wasn't a big fan of Hikaru either. Like he seemed kind of like douchey and all that kind of stuff. But like definitely seeing Armand getting so emotional about it, it was like it's definitely a whole other side of things that we weren't privy to. So.
But I will say that Armand usually likes to hang out with like kind of a jerk kind of guy because I only say that based on who he's hanging out with in Hawaii. He's hanging out with Eric from Aloha State, and I was like, that guy's kind of a jerk.
That guy's a douche.
Right? But they're like best friends. They do a podcast together. They do other things. I don't know.
Wait, Nicole. So Hikaru gets the pass, but Eric does not get the pass. He's a douche.
Okay, well we didn't see a camera. We didn't see Armand crying about him. So maybe if in a later season he does that, then.
So yeah. So yeah, we've got a few more minutes. Yeah. So yeah, I really liked that little bit about our, Hansan telling Armand like, "Hey, you just be you," and it's interesting, yeah, because it made me think about one thing that really touched me about this series was like me thinking about my own goals and like what does make me happy. I think the pandemic. I think we've all been kind of like in this existential crisis of like, shoot, like and we're having all this time at home and thinking to ourselves like, what does make us happy? And I think our Hansan saying that made me like, for a while I personally I thought Armand was kind of just taking up space, but him saying that made me kind of realize, oh, Armand in a way is a counterpoint to this hyper goal focused Japanese culture. Hansan even says that like, hey, Armand brings something that maybe we're missing in Japan. This kind of this Hawaii sort of like, hey, just chill, bruh. I don't know. And dude, when he leaves, holy shit! Like when he starts crying, Hansan crying. Like I don't know how you guys felt. I was like, I almost cried, but I was just like, wow. And I thought I think this is when the series became like one of my favorite series, because I just saw how real, even though there's cameras on him, he knows but like his reaction was just so beautiful when he receives like the pictures from Misaki, and he starts crying like, I will treasure this. I don't know. What'd you guys think of him leaving? I know, Nicole, you said you're like, bye, Hansan.
I mean, I feel like so there's like a lot of crying when people leave, but I do like appreciate the show like showing like men being a lot more emotional and like open about it. Although like I don't completely understand why they're always crying. Like I didn't cry when my roommates left and they're like friends of mine, but
well, you'll see them again, I guess. Right? Yeah.
I could see them again. But yeah, so I mean that like particular moment didn't like stand out to me. I think probably because I had seen like Armand crying about like
Hikaru
leaving earlier, and I just at that point was kind of used to it. So yeah, it didn't really make any emotional impression on me. But
wow, okay. Nicole's got a cold heart. Okay, I see. Dan, or you're whatever.
Growing up, I always thought the Japanese stereotype was they're very stoic. They didn't show any emotion, and then that's probably true, right? You're not supposed to show when you're like in pain or whatever like that to the outward face. But I think they bottle it up so much that when they reach a certain breaking point, like with Uchi, it just like all comes out. So they might not show it on a regular basis, on a frequent basis, like their feelings. But once it happens, it happens. But
I can say that. Yeah, I can say that's true. Like I mean, sorry, Dad, but like my dad, I've seen my dad like bottle stuff, and then like all of a sudden it comes out like either through like anger or like tears. Yeah.
So I was sad when Yuto Honda left at the end. I mean, I didn't get it at the first. I didn't know why the commentators loved him so much, but at the end I was like, yeah, that guy was really solid. And then the way he finally learned that, maybe Armand is living the best life. Like, he is the Buddha, right? He's basically, he doesn't want more. He doesn't want, like, there's no greed. There's no, like, anger or envy or something like that. He just wants to live, like, just enough to be in balance with life. He doesn't want more than what's available, and he doesn't want less. It's just like, I just want to have a family and surf and just work is work. I just need to survive.
Would you say, Dan, that his life view is the closest to yours?
I wish that were true, but I still want things. I want transform. I want like toys or whatever. I want the Lakers to win. So I can't say that if it would be ideal if I could be like Armand and just not care. I was like, as long as I can go surfing, come back, my family's nice and healthy, I'm not like starving, I'm not homeless, then that would probably be ideal. And maybe I'm working more towards that. When you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, I have to make it big and everything like that. But when you're like in your 40s, I'm like, fuck, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to be Ray Kroc opening a McDonald's at age 60 and making a franchise.
Or like what's his name? Colonel Sanders, right? Yeah,
Or
yeah.
family, or anybody who's like past 40, whatever, and then you're like, oh, there's still a lot of things I want to do. Now I'm like, oh, I gotta make sure my kids are okay.
Nicole, as the sole 20-something on this podcast, did you share a lot? Who do you think? Well, should we finish the series and then we can circle back to this, or?
Oh no, we can do both.
We can do both. So yeah. So Nicole, how about yourself? Was there anyone that you felt like, oh, your life, as the 20-something on this podcast, that you felt like, oh, I want to strive like that, or I want to create some, get some, my own exhibitions, such and such. Yeah, make my own movie, write my own script. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone throughout the season that I felt like their worldview or their like how they're going about living their life necessarily gelled as much. Like there are definitely like aspects of certain people where like I could relate in that moment. But I also think I was also kind of in a different place then than I am now. Being like back then when I was watching it, I was like in my second year of college, like still kind of figuring out, like I had no idea how the industry even worked and that kind of stuff and how to move forward and things. Now I think, I guess like in the mind of like, oh gosh, Mr. Tappan, sorry, I forgot his name at this moment, but
Yuki.
Yeah, Yuki
like, Adachi, yeah.
I really, so far as like having a dream and like reaching for it and wanting to be like the best at that, like being a screenwriter is like my thing, and I want to be successful and like do that, but I don't think that I would attack someone else for not like necessarily being that way, like having that same dream that they're working hard towards.
Nicole, you're not being clear enough. Be clear. You say all these words, but I'm not understanding.
Yeah, like sometimes I definitely wish I could be like Armand and I could just like work some part-time jobs and then just like travel the world on that money and just be chill and not be like satisfied with that kind of thing. But ultimately, I definitely like kind of like Yuki, like have this dream that I want to reach and like be as like the best I can and be successful in my field and like acknowledged for that. But hopefully in a more polite way than he was expressing himself. So
well, you can be like Mr. Perfect in that way, reaching for your goals and not forcing it on other people.
Go. Yeah, I'll be Miss Perfect. So
yeah. That's interesting. It seems like you're the most critical of Mr. Tap or Yuki, but in some ways you share some commonalities, huh? Like as far as like you want to be like the best in your field or up there, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I
think that's good. And I think having a goal or having something, I think so far maybe I might have been sounding like, oh, people are too hyper focused or maybe, but I do think having on this show, but I think having a goal is a beautiful thing. And watching this show just made me really rethink what my goals were too. Even though I'm way older than most of these people except for Hayato, who we'll get to, but I'm only a few years older. But like anyways, so I think it is having this idea of basically not feeling lost, And the great thing about Armand is that he didn't have some super solid goal, but he did not feel lost to me. Yeah. So let's move on. I know we're kind of running over, but two more things I kind of want to get to was there's three couples that end the series. We have Misaki and Yuki. Kind of
rarely talked about.
And
Yuki
kind of a relationship of and we skipped over Momoka, the ballerina. Good for her, she stayed for like a month and she achieved her goal. Good for her. Super, she
reached her dream.
She reached her dream. Yeah. So let's talk about Misaki and Yuki Burns. What do you guys think about that relationship? Nicole, why don't you start? Yeah.
Like when I was looking through the outline, like I didn't even really remember them, to be honest. So that's the kind of impression they left. Although like looking back on it, I do remember I really liked Yuki when he came on, although that might also once again be my Hapa bias.
Your Hapa bias, yeah.
Yeah. but yeah, so they just did not leave an impression on me at all.
Ouch.
Like especially Mizaki. Like I don't remember what she did or like
She's
anything about
the
her.
dancer. She's like this. In the intro, she's like doing this dancing thing with her fingers,
With her fingers, yeah.
the spirit fingers.
Yeah, so I think like kind of along with how like Armand and Martha's like relationship ended up being like in the show itself, it didn't make much of an impression on me on like how things would end up going later on. Like I don't know, I don't have much to say about that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
what about Rico and Hayato?
Yeah,
Oh my
what
God,
about Rico
what a
and
hot
Hayato?
mess.
What?
That's a hot mess.
That's a hot mess, yeah.
Yeah,
So
well,
are
that
you, yeah.
revelation. Yeah. So I mean, I never liked him from the start. I didn't like he just seemed really douchey to me. And like their age difference creeps me out. But
Yeah, so Rico's what, 18 and he's
he was like
29?
18. Yeah, the big 10-year difference, which like if that was later on in life, that's fine. But like in that moment they're in very different places of their life. Um so yeah, I mean like when there was that whole like revelations they'd been like going around sneaking behind camera or whatever, like meeting up, that definitely like kind of shattered my image of her. So it seemed
Ouch.
kind of in pattern with him. So um I definitely think that was like it's like probably the clearest example of like how you kind of portray yourself on camera when you know you're being filmed. And yeah, like for like a lot of these people, they are trying to like further their careers in some way. Like there's lots of actors and actresses and models and artists who have a brand to promote. So I definitely understood like why she had been trying to hide it initially, but obviously things did not work out in that way after. And I don't know. Did they? How long did that end up lasting? Do you know? Because like I did not. I tried to
think
keep away from that toxicity. So
I think
Yeah.
it probably ended soon after, because in Japan and Asia, the female idols are supposed to portray themselves as like singles, so the guys would actually want to be with them. And then on the flip side, the guys are the same way, right? They're not supposed to have open relationships when they're younger, and then girls will always like aspire, like, oh, maybe he'll pick me, kind of thing. So they try to keep all their personal lives on the down low.
Yeah. So basically there was the whole Rico special where he made like this special dessert for her. So what happened is that Hayato for a few episodes were telling Yuki and Armand like, oh yeah, I'm not really that into her. I don't really see her that way. And Yuki's like, yo, bro, you and her were just kissing. You guys were kissing in front of the elevator. Like, I saw you. And then Armand's like, yeah, I saw Rico in your bed before. And then like Rico just starts crying. And then Hayato's like a little bitch. He's like just like drinking water.
And not saying anything.
Not saying anything. And then Misaki calls him out like, yo, Rico's been talking this whole time saying like, she's trying to protect her career and this feels like work when there's a cameras on. Like, you're not saying anything. He's like, yeah, I was thinking about Rico. The thing is, yeah, he kind of passes the buck. But then again, Armand went to his wedding, Hayato's wedding, later on after the series ended. So maybe he's a good guy. I don't know. Or maybe Armand just likes douchey guys. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said. Right? There's something about the people he hangs out with.
The thing is,
that way he seems the best person. And then
yeah, because anyways, Hayato he did cook a lot for the group, so I mean, I think Nicole, you bring up a good point. It was like they called it system error. It's like basically this had never happened on Terrace House before, where like they were living a completely different intimate life than to what they were portraying on screen. And yeah, I think for me it was super interesting, that part, and also the aspect that they would be watching themselves. They would watch the other previous episodes from their life that had happened 2 weeks ago, and there would be revelations there. And I just think that's one thing I really like about Terrace House, is kind of like seeing this social experiment of reality TV. How do humans react or portray themselves in this kind of very artificial environment, and they react in very human ways, like Rico putting on this facade of purity, like Dan mentioned. So I thought it was super interesting, this idea of like reality versus fiction and holding up a facade. And I think in some ways, I mean, I think we're all guilty of this, even in our public life. Even when Nicole and I were at that office, we're like, there's a specific way we act in front of our business colleagues and associates. But this is taken to the extreme where there's millions of people watching you. It's a lot of pressure, Dan, any thoughts on that, those relationships? Or
No, but so Nicole, out of the whole series or all the cast members, did you like one guy, one girl? Which ones did you like the best, and which couple do you think was like the best fit?
I probably liked Mizuki the most overall of everybody, just like overall throughout the seasons, because I felt like, I don't know, I can't think of like a negative moment she had where she showed herself in a bad light. Like she had her moments of like badassery, and she like stood up for herself, and she was great.
Oh man, she cut her hair. She cut her hair after like Armand, or she cut her hair before Armand dumped her, and then like, what did you say? She's like, oh, the feelings linger in your hair.
Yeah,
so
she.
Nicole, is that true or?
I have not experienced that, but I mean, it's definitely true that lots of people girls look at haircuts or dye their hair after a breakup. But it's nice to see that that's an international thing. But yeah, so it's probably my favorite girl. Armand's probably my favorite guy throughout it all. He's like another one I follow on Instagram because he seemed like the most chill and just kind of non-problematic of all the other guys, and kind of left. Maybe because he was there so long, he made like the biggest impression. Because there are plenty of other guys who were like fine, but kind of faded from memory. But it's probably my two favorite, and then favorite couple. I don't know if I was really rooting for any of the couples that ended up going on in there. I guess for Yudo and his off-screen girlfriend was probably my favorite relationship. Like all the other ones were either like I was not seeing the chemistry or just felt like last minute impression, like that last bit where they're hurrying the couple up.
With like Masako and Martha and Armand maybe, or
yeah. Like I was happy for him, but felt rushed. So yeah,
because she wasn't really that into it, huh? Like starting.
Yeah, she didn't seem like it. It seemed like for a nice like ending. Okay, we'll like start going out, but it worked out for a little while. So but yeah, I don't think there was any couple, not like in later seasons where there were couples I was like gunning for.
Okay.
But yeah.
For me, I think Misaki and Yuki actually had some beautiful moments, because just knowing Misaki's story of the whole breakup with Hikaru, and then Yuki kind of like, it was kind of a reminder of Sayong Sima Yanzi Feifu, right? It's basically, if you lose a horse, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it could be a good thing. So when Han-san leaves, it's super emotional, but then Yuki comes in, right? And like, it's like a breath of fresh air for Misaki, who's recovering from this big major rejection from Hikaru, who basically told her like, you don't have a center, And then Yuki comes in and tells Misaki, no, you totally do, and I accept you as you are. And I was just like, wow, that's really beautiful, Again, it did seem like a little bit like, damn, he's like very bubbling, like so like, he's like saying on like the third time they go out, like, I love you, like he's like, whoa, but I did think that was kind of nice. And then also Armand, him getting hit by a car.
Yeah.
He gets hit by a car, but basically because he got hit by the car, Martha was taking care of him, and he's like, damn, I love this girl, like, so it's kind of like a bad thing turns into a good thing, yeah. So, and then the whole Rico and Hayato, super creepy, that was weird, but I want to say maybe there's some parts of Hayato that are good that we didn't really get to see. I think maybe, yeah. So I guess for the most part, I would say Misaki and Yuki, but I know they didn't last. And another thing with Misaki, and then What else happened? Yeah, I saw on another reality show, they went to clean up Misaki's apartment, and it was like super messy. It was like she was a hoarder or something. Yeah.
Oh.
So there's like this whole other side about Misaki that maybe we don't know about, and like it was super sad to watch because she started crying when the commentators. This is a different reality show, like a variety show, and she started crying. And I think, lucky that they went and cleaned it. But I think she has some other issues that she's dealing with, and I'm glad that she had Yuki, and they had some beautiful moments together. So yeah, but as far as like top guy, probably maybe Han-san, just because he seemed the most put together, and then top girl, I would say. Well, Momo, she's only there for a little bit, but Moko, she had her shit together. She like reached her dream. But yeah, very didn't really not too memorable. It's hard for me. Come back to me. What about you, Dan? Yeah.
I think Han-san and Armin are probably up there.
Yeah, Armin's good too. Yeah.
For the girls, I think it was probably like the last girl that was around. It was like Martha or Masa. So I liked her. I didn't like her at the very beginning for whatever reason, but
she liked Hayato a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but as like the things went on, I was like, oh yeah, this girl's actually kind of like a female version of Armand in a way. So it's good that they hooked up, and we didn't really talk about it, but like the formal way of like guys and girls getting together was like very interesting to me because I've never dated a Japanese I went out a couple of times with a Japanese girl, but not to the point where I had to like confess my love or like, hey, let's make it formal that we're boyfriend girlfriend kind of thing. So rather than having it organically just go on, I thought that was very interesting. Not kissing before you actually do all that. As far as the couple is concerned, probably Armand and Martha, even though it only lasted for a year or something like that.
I think they lasted the longest out of all the couples after the show on this particular season.
Yeah.
Like a year and a half or something. Yeah.
And I know that Misaki, she might have had like some sort of weird mess, but she actually made it to one of those pop idol groups.
Oh, great! Good for her. Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. I think so. To wrap it up. One more thing. I talked to my Japanese tutor about this confession thing, and she's like, yeah, basically for her personally, she's like a 20-something Japanese woman in Japan. It's uncomfortable for her to hang out with single guys by herself, just the two of them, because then she kind of wants to know, okay, what is this? Are we just friends hanging out, or are we just like, is this a date? She kind of wants clarity. And in this way, like, Japanese people are very straightforward. I think they want to know exactly what is this, But in some ways, I was like, wow. I told her, like, that seems like a lot of pressure, like, at the start, Like, she's like, yeah, but I mean, people are trying to, there's people are different, but in general, if you like someone, you would basically do a confession, a haksubai, and then say like, hey, I like you, I like to go out, and then go from there. And I just found that very interesting. Although some people, I think nowadays that's still like a holdover from like a more conservative era, but I think people are a little bit more lenient now. Like, but yeah. I don't know. Nicole, any thoughts on that? Did you find that surprising at all, or?
Yeah, that's like the whole like hands holding thing. Like they were super like strict about that. It seemed like where to me it didn't seem like that big of a deal, but it seemed like a big deal. Like if you're doing that, you were dating.
Hold up.
Like remember with Armand and like
Arisa,
like reaching for that hand.
Arisa, heartbreaker. It's a heartbreaker.
She led him on. Anyways.
Yeah, I felt bad for him there, but yeah, so that was like, it definitely stood out to me, like how kind of formal things felt, which I mean, like in some respects, like I can respect that, like having things be clear cut from the start on like how things are going to proceed, but it's definitely a bit of a cultural shock.
So Nicole, you'd hold hands with someone before a relationship?
Yeah, before like defining things or anything. Like if you're going out like on dates, then yeah.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I think holding. I've done more before relationship, but yeah, I think hand holding is is kind of intimate. Yeah, huh? Interesting. Like in some ways, it's more intimate than kissing. I think. Like if you're hand holding and holding hands in public. I don't know, Dan. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know about like I don't know. That's like an old thought. I think hand holding's okay. It's not that big.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in grade school, you don't even kiss like back in the days, right? You just like hold hands. It's like that's a
Yeah,
big
we
deal.
didn't even think about it. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, we should wrap it up. Nicole, I know it's getting kind of late. So we generally do like a language corner, to wrap it up. But I don't know, Dan, you want to do a language corner or like, let's see.
I got nothing. I didn't even prepare for that one. I was like, I just want to talk about Terrace House.
Terrace House, yeah. How about this? Instead of a language corner, we'll do. Nicole, do you have a favorite? So out of all the series, this is your favorite series, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? Out of all the series that you've watched, the ones on Netflix, which are Boys and Girls in the City, Opening New Doors, or Tokyo 2019-2020, do you have a favorite cast member?
I think my favorite cast member is, oh my gosh, can't remember her name in this very moment, but in Opening New Doors, she plays hockey.
Oh,
What's her name? I follow her.
I don't know. I haven't
can't
seen
remember
it.
her name.
Oh, sorry. I totally skipped Aloha State. Oh, sorry. Aloha State comes before Opening New Doors, but yeah.
I don't care about anyone at Aloha State.
Oh,
so.
ouch.
Yeah, so definitely I think she's probably my favorite. Like her whole like journey, she seems like the nicest, sweetest person, and I was also rooting for her relationship.
Great.
But,
okay, I look forward to watching that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah. I don't know. I've only seen 2 series. Again, I Terrace House, Aloha State. I mean, some of the people were okay, but overall, oh man, especially the last group of 6 people that were at the end. I just thought they could just like cut that whole section off, and I would have not worried about it.
I look forward to watching it.
Yeah.
Cool. I will end with there's a few. I think I've seen the first season. I definitely recommend everyone to watch it. Check out the first season if you can find it on the torrent site or something, or like download it somewhere. I think there's some really good moments in there. They make some appearances, like Sena makes an appearance. There's also Daiki, the boxer guy. His story arc is pretty crazy when you watch it. As far as the first season, I will end with a language corner of like. There's a lot of fun phrases like Dan had already mentioned shogunai, which means like cannot be helped. Shogunai, they use that a lot. Another one was I think it's so funny. The coward rice, ukujinashi, right? Dan, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Kujinashi.
Ikujinashi. Yeah, ikujinashi,
but,
coward.
Oh, if we actually stick to Terrace House Japanese words, the thing that I learned was yabai. Yabai, when I was growing up, yabai means like, oh shit, that's bad. But for them, it was like, yabai. I was like, that's amazing. I was like, oh, that's new Japanese slang that I did not know until I watched the show. By the way, I looked it up. Tsubasa is the hockey player.
Yeah.
What's that?
Tsubasa.
What's that mean?
That's the hockey player girl that I like.
Oh, Tsubasa. Okay.
Tsubasa means wings, by the way.
Means what?
Wings.
Oh.
Wings. Yeah.
Well, like, Dan, do you know cho kawaii, like super cute? Very, yeah. They use that like cho kakkoi, super cool, yeah.
Yeah, and
mecha, really cool, yeah. Well, okay, let's wrap it up. Any last thoughts before we end this podcast?
Nicole?
Just go. I mean, I assume you would have watched it if you're listening to this, but if you haven't, go watch it and introduce other people to it and bring them into the cult. So.
Dan?
Nicole said it already.
Yeah.
Just go watch it.
I think I will just end with like, just understand that these are real people. These are people's real lives, and I think we were kind of like being bagging on some of these people, but at the end of the day, this is just only a snippet of who they are. And even though I may seem so kind of judgmental on some of them, for all we know, like in real life, they're super cool. And who knows? Because
You're the Yama-chan from this podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, because like real talk. Sorry to get like dark like Yama-chan, but like, yeah, some people have had. There's one girl that had killed herself over bad comments from not this season, but from the most recent season, Tokyo 2019 to 2020. So I think it's from bad comments, and that because the producer were pushing her. So just understand, like, I think one thing I learned from this series is that not like, wow, there's certain behaviors I don't want to be like, but also, at the same time, I can relate to them. Even Yuki, even the Dream Police guy, I can see what he's trying to do, and I can see maybe he has some good but the way he presented it made a girl cry, and I think there's a lot of people who hated on him, and you could see later on his behavior become much more chill, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, what I think I like to all the listeners is like, I think definitely check it out and see how it relates to your own life. But at the same time, don't be too judgmental of these people, because again, they know the camera's on them, and it's a pressured situation. And who knows? Like in the same situation, I would probably do some dumb shit too. So yeah, cool. So that's the end of this podcast. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, take care. Have a great night. Stay safe.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Yin and Young, the podcast, episode 51, Terrace House, Boys and Girls in the City, with guest Nicole McLendon. This episode features short audio and video clips from the show that belong to Fuji TV and Netflix, as well as the images you see now if you're watching us on YouTube. The intro and the outro is from the song Slow Down by the band Lights Follow. Speaking of follow, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Yin Young Podcast. That's spelled YINYOUNG Podcast. And also on YouTube at Yin and Young. That's spelled YIN_YOUNG. Like and subscribe to our content so you don't miss an episode. Thank you so much, and hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. Happy holidays!